I know there are some detailed questions, and we can get to those, but I would actually like to ask the three of you as a first overall question. In your perspective, what is the key barrier for renovations? Because we have the engineering art, we have the architects with the knowledge and the experience and the insight, we have the tools that are able to account and document. So the expertise is there, the technology is there, the challenge is definitely there, that is very obvious, and also I think the investment willingness has also been documented, that is a good idea to renovate what we have. I saw a figure recently, if you look at the CO2 loss of tearing down a one-family house and building a new, or if you renovate the one you have in a good way, there can be as much as 56 times the difference in CO2 accounting. So it's on paper, it's not a difficult calculation, but still we have a very low renovation rate, and still, like you all actually showed, and in particular you, Claire, it's very difficult for people to know what are the how do we go about it, and what are the values that we want to keep, and what is it that we don't keep. So a quick round between the three of you to ask you, in your experience and perspective, what are the key barriers? I would like to start with you, Friedel, so we take it the other way around as we did the presentations.
I think one of the key barriers is that it takes a lot of time to have a good renovation. I think insulating the building, that is still something quite easy to do in a certain way, but bringing in a ventilation system is much harder to do, and it's becoming more complicated to do, and that's I think a moment when people see too much difficulties and they stop with it. So I think if you want to have a qualitative renovation, you should do it in a good way. So that means also you need some ventilation system, and then it's not easy anymore to make a quick renovation. Then you really have more big renovation works, which takes some time, which costs a lot of money. And that's, I think, we should focus more on the co-benefits of a renovation, not only on the energy performance of it, but also look at the comfort that is improved at that time. And I see that I don't see people renovating just because of energy reasons. They renovate because they want more space, because because of functionality, because they want to, that is, I think, the key driver of renovation. And I think we should take that into account and focusing on that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Jonas, from your perspective, from your chair, you have done the Regenerative as the first of the houses. I know they have been replicated even beyond Belgium as a principle. What do you see as the biggest barrier?
I think it has to do with costs, in the sense that the CO2 load on the environment is still not taken into account in the costs of the building. And so in a lot of cases, the difference between renovating a house or building a new one in terms of costs doesn't make such a big difference. But the reason that it doesn't make a big difference is that the CO2 load is still free. So you can still freely put the CO2 in the environment. And I think the clients still think or are convinced that the new build offers them more opportunities than the renovation, that there will be limited when they choose for a renovation, that it will limit what they can do with an existing building. And so I think it's a key element for architects to show the benefits of choosing for renovation, also showing that in a way, yeah, these limitations are only in the heads of people, but I see as many good renovations than I see new builds. So it doesn't need to be a limitation to choose for a renovation. And then a second thing, when CO2 becomes part of the costs, that will rapidly change, because then they will really experience in terms of costs that the renovation is much more beneficial compared to a new build. And so it's key to take that CO2 emission into account in the costs.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. So it's in the minds of the people, and a mosquito can, even if it's a very small creature, it can create the biggest problems on the air quality, apparently, and also the feeling of security can stand in the way for gaining passive solar. So it's in the minds. What would you say, Claire? You have been working with the values and the cultural aspects in your tool. What is the biggest barrier in your perspective?
Well, quite similar to what Jonas said, I think that one of the main problems is the communication between architects and homeowners, and just the way that architects need to be able to show to clients how important renovation can be, and that there are so many possibilities. During my conversations with the Residential Architects Association of Denmark, who have a lot of interaction with homeowners, and they've found that the kind of most driving factor for homeowners is the return on investment. That's the most interesting aspect for them, is how much money they think that they'll be able to make in the market when they try to sell this property. So how can architects kind of find this compromise with making a truly sustainable renovation, but with the homeowner's interest in having a return on their investment in the project? So there definitely needs to be a communication and a compromise between architects and homeowners to find out how to really make these projects. And as Frida was saying, that to make a truly sustainable project, it takes a lot of time and a lot of investment. But these projects are, as we know in the built environment, the lowest budget projects, because it's a homeowner that has a very small amount of financial resources. So in that sense, I think that some of the bigger problems, they need a lot of help from the bigger organizations, such as government or investors, that are going to make it possible for truly sustainable renovations to happen, even in this small scale, to have an actually big effect. Yeah.
Like subsidies.
Yeah.
Incentives, something extra. Thank you very much for your perspectives.
Yeah, there's a problem with that, though, is that a lot of these subsidies are focusing on the energy renovation. And so they're only doing the energy renovation, but not taking into consideration the holistic part. And so the subsidies are actually damaging the cultural heritage. So the subsidies need to have a holistic perspective to make sure that they're not damaging other qualities by only focusing on one.
Thank you for that perspective. That is just in line with our holistic approach. And yes, it is costly. The quote from Warren Buffett, and it's two different things. The value of the built environment is huge. So we should consider that in our investment optics. Thank you very much. I would like to see maybe Alberto, if we have some questions.
Yes, I think if we have a look at the thermal breaches of the transmission losses we have overall the whole building envelope, it's almost 10% by the thermal breaches. And that's mostly because of the connection of the existing wall of the neighbors that is just running through our own wall. So the exterior wall of the neighbor becomes interior wall at our side. And
I can show that in a detail if it helps.
We have for a part interior insulation at the common wall between our building and that of the neighbor to solve a little bit the thermal bridge. It's not completely solved, but to to avoid mold growth and to yes, indeed. So there at the front facade, you can see that we have actually there we have a gypsum board at our side of the room. So there we have completely thermal insulation. That was also required for the acoustics, and actually the acoustics we could really follow the acoustical requirements of Belgium for housing. And here, yes, we can see in the front facade that we have, I think it was 0.5 meter, Jonas. I remember. I don't remember.
Yes.
Yeah, that we turned on the corner a little bit the thermal insulation into the facade, just to avoid mold growth and to limit a little bit the thermal bridge.
She said here on the chat that she was referring to the exterior corner.
And which corner do you mean? Emilia, you can speak out loud to...
Yeah. Don't hesitate to unmute yourself if you want to add something.
Yes, I'm thinking at the exterior corners, the intersection between, you know, two exterior walls, not with the neighbor. Because they, I mean, in the calculations I'm doing, the higher the one-dimensional thermal resistance is, the higher thermal bridge effect is also. So because you indicated some transfer coefficients, capital U, very low, so thermal resistance is very high, of the order of 6, 7. The effect of thermal bridges reduces them to 4 or 5 or something like that. And in the calculations I'm doing, such high thermal resistances are not effective on the energy consumption for heating, actually. I wonder why you are using such low U values, and if you made any simulation to consider half the values in thermal resistances, so double the U values, and see what is the result in the heating need.
Yes,
So,
it has in our climate, it has a large impact. So the minimum we have to do for the Belgium law is indeed the half of what we have done. And we did some calculations. What if we only insulate what is required by the law? Or what if we insulate more than that? And we started from a point that actually we want to create an energy neutral building, a climate neutral building in the future. And we think that the building envelope is something that we renovated right now and we can't change anymore for the next 30 years. So that's why we have chosen already for the building envelope what should be what we really need for an energy neutral building. The gas condensing boiler, on the other hand, that is something that we think that in time there will be a district heating system, and then we can connect the building to the district heating system, which will be fed by renewable energy, also for the domestic hot water. So in that way, that is how we made our choices, but it was really needed, the U values in this case.
okay, thank you.
So, yeah, does anyone else have any comments to add or want to add something to our amazing speakers?
There is a new question regarding the mold growth assessment. Have you used a static model, e.g. Glazer, or a transient model through the use of software?
We did some calculations with Term. It's open source software. It is just to calculate the temperature in the thermal bridge, and then we look at the temperature at the inside, and then we know with the climate in Belgium we have to try to have a temperature factor of 0.7% because we have also a good indoor air quality in the house to avoid mold growth. So that's actually how we designed the thermal bridge there, or the solution for it.
The house is owned by the social housing company. Since this was a kind of a test case, it was Velux who took the initiative to make this, as a model house, to make this renovation. And so in this case, for this one house, it was Velux making the costs to the house. But after this test period, the house is going back to the social housing company. They were also given all the results of the studies that we did. And with that knowledge in hand, they could renovate the other houses that they own in the garden city. Also then paid by their own funds and the subsidies that are given for renovating social housing. Well, not really the next one. We did make calculations of the actual costs when more houses are renovated. And so because of the scale, the costs really go down quite a bit. So this was a one-off, making a test. So this is definitely more expensive than when you renovate 50 houses at the same time. Then you have the scale benefit that makes it a lot more affordable.
Yeah, should I make now other decisions and then? I think we started with the project with as a ventilation system with a heat recovery system, and that changed because we found other partners to a natural supply ventilation system as the main subject. I still think we can have a better project if it is with a heat recovery system. So I think that would be my preference, especially in combination with the hybrid ventilation system we have here. I have to admit I'm not very familiar about the natural breathable materials. I read something about it, but it's already time ago, so I cannot really answer that question if it is something I should use here, and I should investigate it a little bit more. And for the renewables energy, I think really we have to look into the scale of the district, and it's impossible to solve that with that small little house. It's just too small to cover that. That's really, I find it a pity that we didn't have to look at the garden city. I think the quality of the houses right now in the garden city are really inhabitable. It's full of mold growth in the houses. They are not healthy at all. The energy consumption is huge. We did some measurements before in the houses, and they kept the temperature in winter situation at 16 degrees because they couldn't afford it to heat it up higher up. So it's a really problem. The people who live there, they don't have the money to invest in the buildings. So, and that's a question more for policymakers. What do you do with that kind of neighborhoods? Don't you have to create a new garden city with the philosophy of a garden city, but with new insights on techniques? And I think I would now go for a new garden city, totally new build, because in this case, the structure of the buildings, there were too many problems already with it. So I think this was maybe an insight that we gained, but that was not the question here for this competition. So you cannot solve everything as an architect. Also for the cultural heritage here, the cultural heritage is that it's a garden city, and it's the architecture of the site and how it is with the small hedges and so on. That has a quality, but you don't have to keep the facade at the same place to keep the cultural heritage of the whole district. And that's what they asked us for first. They really wanted to have interior insulation, but then there were so many problems of health and of the structure that it was not feasible. So they luckily accepted it to have the exterior thermal insulation. But yeah, it's a trade-off between the cultural heritage and what is cultural heritage. It's not just the facade of the building, it's the whole district. And I think, yeah, you have to think more about that kind of things.
Thank you for that remark, Friedel. The cultural heritage, how can we define that? Chris, you have a question. Do you want to speak up?
Yes.
Good. Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I'm Christoph, so it is not Chris Rushton.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, then
I can give only two explanation on my question. First is I think there is a big shift coming in using natural insulation materials, because there is the relation between energy performance and comfort. Which is different, but what makes energy efficiency more achievable than a few years ago, if we consider real comfort. And the second question was about renewable energies. I'm astonished of very low use of energy in auto consumption and strategies. The response was, for me, in the right direction. If we consider individual homes or individual buildings, they will not achieve auto consumption targets. But if we consider 3, 4, 5, 10, 50 homes or buildings, you have a community, and it is totally achievable with the technologies we have now. So it is why what I pointed with solar panels. We think it is not affordable because we sell electricity to the network. But if we consider the heat production of solar panels and the low energy consumption in the building after retrofitting, it is totally achievable to have hybrid solar panels with some days storage. It sounds to be achievable, but it has to be explored. Otherwise, with interseasonal storage, but it's depending on geographic climate conditions. But those solutions are existing. So it is a bit a pity if we consider in every part of the city there are coming some heat networks with a combustion solution if we have renewables. This is a short explanation about my questions.
Thank you for that, Christoph. Chris, you are asking, should there be mandatory legislation to help us all renovate all the existing houses by law? That is a big question.
Yes,
Chris,
especially in the UK.
Yeah, I think they are working on it. It's really necessary if we want to have a climate neutral Europe in 2050. We only have 30 years left. And in Belgium, they are looking at a way, they see that when people buy a house, that's a point in their life that they want to invest in the house to make it more at their at their size, at their needs. And at that point, people want to really renovate. And then maybe we should make mandatory, that at the moment that people can and are willing to renovate, that you force them to do it. But you cannot ask somebody who is living there for already 20 years, I'm thinking at my grandmother, and then saying, now you have to renovate your house. Yeah, that's not, I don't think that will work. People will get mad of it. I think you have to find out the way that it's acceptable for the people to do so. And then you have to be, because that is not right now in Belgium, then you have to be it should be far enough. I think everything that we renovate right now should be climate neutral already. We can't wait anymore. We don't have to start with renovating a little bit in the facade. No, we have to go full way, all the way. We have the techniques, everything exists already. We have no time anymore to waste. So, and that's not the case yet in Belgium. We have to be more ambitious.
It's very difficult. I've done a lot of work in the small domestic market all my career, and it's very difficult with individual small clients to get the message across. I think it's only society as a whole, an attitude of everybody that's going to start to ask us the questions rather than us explaining what's going to happen. So, you know, I fully agree. Everything you've said is everything that's happening here. But it's even more complex here with PAS 2035 and all these other things that people are jumping onto, which aren't being led by architects.
My experience is that if you explain people that the goal is to, in 2050, to be climate neutral, and that is still a long a long period, then they accepted that we have to do it, and they want to do it as well. They want to try to find a strategy that it is possible to be at that goal at that time. But if you force them to do something within 2 years, then it's not possible. I can't do that in 2 years. It's too close to think about it. But if the aim is far enough and it's a collective aim, I have the impression that everybody agrees and that they want to go for it.
Yeah, I've got the approach of what I call future proofing, really, of designing things that can then evolve as they can add on to it as time moves on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris, for your question.
Okay.
Yeah, Lone is telling us that she had a bad connection, so yeah. And yeah, if anyone else have any comments, I think that, we have covered a quite good amount of topics today. So again, thank you to all the speakers for your great contribution today. We hope to see you again after the summer. So yeah, enjoy your summer. Yeah, thank you all for being here. Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.